small groups and the large groups. So now we move on to the last segment for today as we hear from Longmont and Lakewood. Again, please introduce yourself and your position in your branch.
Good morning still, although it's almost lunchtime. My name is Wanda Schnabel, and I am the president of the Longmont AAUW branch. And I would like to thank everyone who's so far given us such interesting and good ideas about how we can expand what we do within our branches. And my job is to talk a little bit about how we in Longmont have been able to put some fun in fundraising. And to do that, I'm going to share my screen and give you some ideas. Let's see here. Little problem. So we called it fundraising for our causes because sometimes fundraising gives you a very kind of negative and difficult feeling. However, over the years, we have developed some ideas that we have worked well for us and that we would really like to share with you. And maybe some of them will work for you. And I guess our main objective is to just say, we've tried to be creative, and we certainly encourage creativity from anyone because it really makes a difference. So here we go. First of all, the first and most important thing, and I think everyone that I've heard from so far who's talked about fundraising has done this. We all attempt to be really good stewards of the money that is contributed and of the money that our branches have raised. And that means to be very transparent, to have an absolute rationale. And for us, and for many of you, it has involved fund building. We have been very lucky in Longmont that beginning in 1953, our organization proceeded to start with what they called the Bargain Book Fair. And the Bargain Book Fair involved collecting, sorting, and selling donated books. Now, that allowed us over the years, it lasted until 2015. And over those years, we were able to raise funds for our scholarships and our community action grants. These proceeds were placed with a local foundation, and that means we no longer need to fundraise every year to provide these grants and scholarships. And for those of us who participated in that Bargain Book Fair over the years, it was a lot of work, yes, because there were a lot of books that had to be hauled around and sorted, but it was also a lot of fun because there was an opportunity to meet and to collaborate with other people, to share all kinds of activities and interests. And one of the benefits of every time you worked a shift, either in preparation or during the sale, was you got to find a free book, take home a free book. And guess what? There were some real treasures that some of us found over the years. The Bargain Book Fair ended in 2015. Change in time and culture, change in the ability of some of our members to be able to participate because of physical issues. And in 2019, we decided we needed a capital campaign in order to add to the funds that we had accumulated through the Bargain Book Fair. And so we wanted to equalize the two amounts. One fund, the scholarship fund, was larger. We wanted to equalize the community action grant fund so that they would have an equal amount of money that could then be distributed. And that was kind of a traditional fundraising campaign. However, it did have an absolute target. We wanted to raise $5,000 because that would have equalized the funds. And we did that by all kinds of incentives, by monthly updates, by cute little charts which showed how we were coming along. We had matching gifts. A member saying, when we reach this amount by December 1st, I will match it. And all of that created a wonderful response. And in the end, we raised $10,000. We raised twice as much as we thought we were going to. And so that meant that we owe so much to the forward-thinking from that 1953 group that started that book fair, which allowed us to keep up for 62 years the raising of funds and built up the sustaining, which is now a self-sustaining fund. And so in that sense, we are extremely lucky that we do not have to raise money every year for our scholarships or our community action grants. But since then, we have moved on to realize that there are certain principles we need to follow. And one of them is to be very specific when we ask for money from our members. Number one is know what it's going for. What are we going to use it for? How much are we looking for? And how soon do we want it? I have a tendency to be a procrastinator and I need a deadline. So therefore, if I have a deadline of a certain date, I will get it there by the deadline. If it is unlimited deadline, well, maybe sometime I'll get to it. That has worked relatively well for us. Another item that has worked well for us is to offer variety. Members have different preferences. Some of them want to give their funds to be used locally by local organizations. Others of them want their things to be used as part of a much larger pot in a national organization or in national funding. So the example or the story, as Drew Houston was talking about earlier, of how this has worked for us is that we have always had an international dinner, which involves a speaker on an international topic in January. And a few years ago, we started the idea of having an auction because one of the things we did at the dinner was eat well. And so our members provided some kind of a dish or a dessert or something that was then bid on by the attendees. And the first year we raised a couple $100 on that in order to support, we used that to support our monthly programs. And of course, with COVID, you can't do that. So what we did instead was we had members contribute to an online auction. And that online auction then allowed them to deliver at a later date with the buyer's preference, a dish. And that eventually involved more members. We got more members involved contributing dishes. We also got more members involved in bidding. It became a little bit competitive. And we raised almost twice as much as we had raised at the in-person. Plus, we had at least 30% of our members bidding. And we did not have 30% of our members attending the international dinner. The item in the 2021 online auction, which we did because of COVID, was used for a national purpose. And we had indicated early on during the advertising for that, that the funds we raised for that would go to support the suffrage sculpture that was being completed by the Loveland artist and is going to be placed in Washington, D.C. to commemorate the passage of the suffrage amendment. Another thing that we've found works is mix it up. Do as many kinds of different things as you can possibly support. There are members who want to do something physically. They want to participate in something themselves. There are other members who just want to write the check. And so once again, an example of this for us is that we have contributed within the last few years. There is an organization, a learning center here in Longmont, and they have an auction during the holiday season. And that particular auction has contributors, and our contribution was 2 decorated Christmas trees. Now, those decorated Christmas trees were done with themes and created all sorts of interest by the individuals who did them, and that was a hands-on kind of activity. They were then contributed, they were displayed in shop windows across the city, other groups bid on them, and we were able to raise, eventually that learning center raised over $30,000 with our little bit of contribution added. But somebody who doesn't want to write a check, who wants to participate, that worked really, really well for. We also found that one of the ways to get people to contribute nationally, and particularly to the Greatest Needs Fund, were to use the stories of how the Greatest Needs Fund had given funds in the past to people, believe it or not, like Maria Curie, scholarships and fellowships that she got way back when, helped to support her in the wonderful, eventually Nobel Prize winning material that she did. So a very, very interesting and useful kind of variation. And then continual reminders during the time. Remember, this is the deadline, and get involved in any way you can. So next slide here. Let's see. Oh, wrong button. Sorry. All right. The other thing we cannot stress enough, and this has really worked pretty well for us, is to try to make fundraising as pleasant as possible, to make it easy, and to make it enjoyable. One of the best ways we have done it in the last few years is by becoming a 501c3. This means that your organization is now, the contributions to it become tax deductible. And it also allows you the option to participate in many of the merchants who do offer the partial benefits on what you buy to a charity that you choose. And the best example is King Soopers, Safeway, Natural Grocers, Amazon Smile. All of those mean that even without our book fair contributing the majority of our funds in the past, we've been able to do okay with our programming. And every time that I go to King Soopers or something and buy my groceries, which really our numbers went up during COVID, naturally, because a lot of people were ordering online from the grocery store or from Amazon. Also, encourage people to come up with ideas. One of the things we found is that when we're charging, or when we wanted people to donate to things like the auction, we needed an easy way for them to pay. And so we designed and set up a PayPal account, which makes it simple to use your credit card and to therefore contribute to the organization. The other thing we've tried to really do, as well as encouraging, the ideas are always run by the board. And so we make sure the ideas are commiserate with our mission, and that we do not have an, out of the way sort of idea that gets us behind it. And then we want to be sure we thank everyone. Thank them formally, informally, letters, in as many ways as they will let us. Whether it's personally, whether it's anonymously, just to say, hey, you did a great job and it is so appreciated. And then we try not to limit ourselves. We try to try different and new things. One of the things that COVID made us do, we have had a holiday open house for years. And for what we did was we had little bitty boxes, and those little bitty boxes each had a little charm or something in it. But one of them had a gift certificate for a local restaurant. And that then meant that we would go around and sell each box for $5. Well, we raised $20, $200, something doing that. But during COVID, we couldn't do it in person. So therefore we did it online. And that meant you could bid as much as you wanted to, and as many times as you wanted to, at $6 per item, with only one gift certificate available. And again, we raised almost twice as much. The first time, both times, these holiday open house fundraisers went to the Greatest Needs Fund. And again, we were just so pleased with the response, the interest that there was. But there was also a little bit of competition because, hey, I want to get that gift certificate. I never did, but I tried. The other thing we do is we collect books during this holiday open house that is given to a local children's learning center. Again, someone who wants to shop, and maybe they will shop at a store that will also give charity to us. And then finally, the sort of thing I've been talking about, try to find connections between the projects you're doing and your fundraising. The most recent thing we've done is we've become more connected with Front Range Community College here in Longmont. And that they let us know that one of the things they really needed was items for their student pantry. So twice now we have made deliveries, and those deliveries first were personal care items. Lastly, they were boxed breakfast items. We're looking forward to more luncheon items in our next particular delivery. And we also encourage our members, okay, go to the grocery store that you use, buy your product there that you're going to contribute, or use Amazon Smile, get it delivered directly to the individual's house who's doing the delivery. Make it simple. And that has worked so well for some of the things we've been successful with over the last few years, especially since the end of the bargain book sale, because the bargain book sale took all of our energy. And now we're able to branch out a little more and to do a few more new things. Anyway, you are more than welcome to copy, to enhance, to create, to find your own kind of fundraising idea and try to enjoy doing it. Now, I would like to move on to Eleanor Grow and Pat Wakeham, who are going from Lakewood, and they're going to be talking about their special project.
Good afternoon. I'm working on getting the picture here, starting video. There I am. Hi, my name is Pat Wakeham. I am the co-president currently of the Lakewood branch. And I wanted to say a few words about a fundraising event that we have really enjoyed, something new that we've done this past year. And we hope to continue doing. And then we have called our event the Little Black Dress Party. Because of COVID restrictions, we have all been sequestered at home, and it was such a wonderful time to get together and to maybe even dress up a little bit, pull out and dust off that little black dress. We held our event on June the 10th this year, and it was in our co-president Pam Lacey's beautiful backyard and overlooking a lake, and just a lovely afternoon. We had wine and appetizers, and we raised about $670 from that one evening. We had about 20 members and guests and spouses in attendance, and we had some light hors d'oeuvres and wine. And then in addition, we contributed other monies from other fundraising events, and to total about $2,500, and contributed to our scholarship fund, and specifically for scholarships for Red Rocks Community College, which we have had an ongoing working relationship with them. And one was fairly straightforward to put on, and we really enjoyed it. And we're going to do it again, Lord willing, and that COVID restrictions do not hold us back. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Eleanor Grow, who's also going to talk about some diversion activities that we have done.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
I would like to talk a little bit about something we call diversions. And one of the things that has been discussed this morning was all of the interest groups outside of our branch meetings. And just to show you how I think it's important to have these groups is that we had 5 new members last year. And because of COVID, we had very few diversions and book groups and so forth. And those 5 members have not rejoined. And so what I want to do is get together with them and say, what are your interests? I feel that the interest groups are very, very important to this organization. And I feel that's where people make their friendships, and that's why several of them continue to pay their dues. So about 10 years ago, we started something called diversions. And a diversion is basically a field trip. And we've had very good participation in that. To give you an idea, even during COVID time, what we did this last year, in February of 2020, we drove down to the McAllister Tea House in Colorado Springs and had tea. We went to the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, got a tour of the hotel and had lunch. We went to the Chautauqua Hall in Boulder, had a tour and lunch. Our latest tea was May 6th of this year, and that was a tea at the Lumber Baron Inn, which is up kind of near Wheat Ridge, and they had just reopened. And we went to the $1 Million Quartet at the Arvada Center, which of course included Elvis, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins. And it was fantastic. To give you some ideas of the last couple of years, we went to the Glen Erie Castle Tea and Tour. We've done Mozart Under the Moonlight at the Arvada Center. We've gone to the Central City Opera, to the Magic Flute. We've gone to the Rambler Museum in Elizabeth. And if you haven't done that, that's really a fun field trip. We did a sipping and painting, and I don't know if any of you have worked with those people. It happened to be my birthday, and that night they gave back half of what our members paid to be there, and we made $280 just having an evening of fun and my birthday. We did the Rose Tea Room in Broomfield, which was amazing, and Valentine's Day in 2019. And then we've done the Motowns versus the Jerseys, which is at the Boulder Dinner Theater. So we allow husbands to attend as well. And we usually have somewhere between 10 and 20 people. We carpool. And I think most people that go have a really good time. So that's something that we do like as an interest group. Any questions?
Well, I will go ahead and ask Wanda to come join us, and then let's start in with the questions.
Okay.
I think first question I have is for Pat and Wanda, and you talk about fundraising and putting a lot of fun into this fundraising. Several years ago, I went to the national convention and I attended a session on fundraising. And the person giving that session stood up and said, the best way to raise money is just to ask for a check. Don't do events. Just, you spend too much time and energy and money putting on the event. The better way is just to ask for a check. And I'd kind of like to get your perspective on that. So Pat, why don't you start?
Well, in some ways, it might be easier to just ask for a check, but you're missing the component of making friends and being involved with your like-minded members of AAUW. And there's a lot to be said for that. I've been a fundraising coordinator with other organizations, and it is sometimes a very difficult job and very, very time consuming. But what you gain from putting on fundraising events far outweighs even even if your fundraising efforts fall short of your goal, um, the joy of being together, having fun, putting on an event takes over for me.
Well,
Wanda,
and
what about you?
I can only agree with that, because I think there's a diversity of needs from people may feel a lot of internal positivity from just writing a check. And that may be absolutely all they need. But for other people, it's much more important to go ahead and to write a check for a cause they believe in, or to participate in an activity, which will then not only give them that pleasure, but also allow them to know that they've met 2 or 3 other people who are of like mind and who like to do the same sorts of things and who are trying their best to raise funds for an organization, but in a much more collaborative way.
I'd like to say something. Can you hear?
Sure, Eleanor, go right ahead.
Okay, I've started a couple of fundraisers for our group, and one is we make pickled beets. And I've done it for 5 years, and we've made over, I think it's over $3,000 now. And what happens is the people tell me that they want to make beets, and they buy the jars, and they write a check for Lakewood AEW for $75. They come to my house for 2 hours, and they leave with 12 pints of beets. And I have many, many repeat customers, so I know that they like to do it. And I said, well, I thought I would teach you how to do it, and then you would do it yourself. And they said, I don't want to get all that beet juice in my kitchen. So it's been really fun. And the other thing I do is they're called baby baskets. And I make quilts that are 33 by 33 inches. I make a pillow to go with it, put it in a basket, put in a beanie baby or a teddy bear and a child's book. And I ask them to write a check for $25 to Lakewood AEW. And I've had people give as much as $700 for one of those baskets. So anyway, that's a couple of things that I've done.
Well, I have one comment here that came from Leslie Jenkins, and she said that Aurora asked for checks for our local scholarship fund, and we raised $7,000 with very little effort. So maybe there's a balance between both of these, the camaraderie that you get and having the fundraising. There's nothing, you can't replace that.
Well, and let me add,
then you can have an event and say, oh, hey, if anybody wants to contribute, send us a check. And maybe that way you kind of have the best of both worlds.
well, let me add something from our experience, Carolyn. When we did that fundraiser to try to equalize both of our funds, both of the funds that we had already accumulated, mainly through the book fair, that's what people did. They just kind of wrote checks. But it was much more, we hadn't done it for a long, long time. I don't know if we'd ever done anything quite like that. And it wasn't a continual in your face, write another check, write another check. Mm-hmm. It was a one-time thing that we did in 2019. And it far exceeded the expectations that we had hoped. So there is absolutely benefit, lots of benefit for doing things in more than one way.
More than one way. There was a question here about the Little Black Dress event, and how much did that cost for people to attend that?
I believe the cost was $20.
So that was a reasonable amount.
Mm-hmm.
We also had music there. One of our members has a son and his wife who play beautiful music. So that was a real added part to the evening. Bluegrass music.
Yes.
Okay. Eleanor, I had a question for you also on the diversions. How many people typically attended those diversions? And were they limited in size?
Most of the time not. We usually get somewhere between 10 and 20 people. depending on how much walking is involved and, you know, that kind of thing, but between 10 and 20.
Okay.
And we have a membership of about 90. So, you know, it's a small percentage, but it's a lot of fun.
Okay, so now, and then back to the fundraising. Do you guys see any conflict between whether people want to help raise money for AAUW or raise money for the community? How do you find that balance between the two?
Well, we always take a look at, the board takes a look at the suggestion, and we'll decide if it fits in our mission and decide perhaps what the purpose of the request is. I mean, you know, what is this, somebody's little pet project on the side, or is there a larger, you know, rationale behind why they're doing it? And we make a judgment call. The idea of equity, of education, is so important to the mission of AUW and AUW Longmont that I really think we are very, very careful to make certain that it fits our particular mission. Hate to reuse that word, but and that it kind of will help to promote us. We're also looking for promotion opportunities in the community. So, for example, when those Christmas trees are in the, you know, in the store windows that have been contributed by people, there's a little sign that says who gave it. And so it's kind of a marketing thing as well, that we're saying, hey, we're out here, and keep us in mind. So there is a definite balance. And since we have put more emphasis on giving nationally to the Greatest Needs Fund, and since the MPP program has allowed you to do that when you renew, our MPP, or our Greatest Need Funds contributions, have increased substantially. So I think the balance somehow works. It will appeal to different members at various times, where, depending upon where they're at.
Okay. Pat, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, I would certainly agree with Wanda that when we are considering various options and supporting community needs, we certainly look at, does it meet our overall mission, and do we, and there are so many good causes in the community that, and we do try to support as many as we can, in addition to our AAUW and especially scholarship funds. We also have memorial funds for our members who have, some of them who have passed. And there are just a lot of needs that we try to contribute to.
So how do you keep, I guess, the funds set up so that you have flexibility in allocating money to different things based on changes in the community and the needs of the community?
Well, go ahead, Pat.
Well, of course, it's ongoing and changing. I mean, there may be things that we want to
You're breaking up.
contribute to in the future with this pandemic through the year. Oh, sorry. We have needs throughout the year, and also different fundraising efforts. And so we might support more funds to something at different times.
Well, and we are very, very fortunate, as I said, because of the amount of funds that was raised between, you know, in those, 62 years of the book fair, that we don't have to worry about our scholarships or our community action grants. The funds we've raised are in the local foundation, and they generate income. And it is the income that is then used for the scholarships. So we have got more flexibility in terms of how we're going to do other kinds of groups, and how we're going to support other kinds of funds. But I'm firmly of the opinion that if it hadn't been of all that work back in, that 60 plus year time period, it's never too late to start that. And to begin to have something that is self-sustaining, that is funded, endowed in your organization is a wonderful. I heard a number of people talk about scholarships that have been named after members and things like that. That's such a wonderful, if you will, cushion for whatever the future may hold.
Okay, does the audience have any other questions or comments that they would like to make? Well, now let me see, what do we do next? So I believe now I will turn this over to Joan Brown.